Hello, dear friends. I couldn't write this piece last night because I was overwhelmed by too much information, but today I have a clearer picture. I was a game over. Pause. Opinion piece. Waiting game. Global expectation. The delay is too long. The crisis is under control. The world is watching. Indiscipline in the coalition. Tempers are high. No one knows the day or the hour. There are too many black swans. The swan no longer frightens even grandmothers. A 2-week silence is expected. Changes are expected in mid-June. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Let's start. There has been a waiting game since Monday's official declaration of the end game or game over, as no one knows how long the coming red carpet event will take. Because while Charlie Watt has now rectified and estimates about 2 weeks, Donald Trump has said there will be nothing public until the outcome of the upcoming November election is known. They were saying that Monday would be a stock market crash because it was the 6th day of the 6th month and the 6th day of the 6th year. But the same thing was said on Friday the 13th, and it went up instead of crashing. We have already said many times that in the prophet's office all talents crash, and that the only thing we can get right is to have patience and faith that everything will come in its own time. Faith, hope, and charity are the theological virtues that we were taught in the Catechism, and which are very valid at this time, especially charity towards those most in need. But let us not forget the cardinal virtues of prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, which are also very important in times of trial, such as the one we are living through. Message in code. For fans of cryptic messages, here are a few sentences. In quotes. All about Operation Harvest en route. Look at the sky. Seatbelt on. Fasten your seatbelts. We have reached our cruising altitude. Life in 3D is an illusion. Death is an illusion. Time is an illusion. Wake up. Did you hear your heart? You still have it. Difficult times and difficult truths. There are 3D people whose social and mental complexes have been corrupted for hundreds of years. This genetic sequence will create more problems in their next life. The end is not for everyone because everyone made their choice. And those who know enjoy the show and do not get nervous. Life is good. Relax and enjoy it. It goes like clockwork. Troubled waters. Tempers have been stirred to the extent that there has been half of an internal rebellion within the White Hats that has had to be quelled as their structure is not a democracy but a hierarchical military chain of command. The head of the Financial Restart Swap Committee, Charlie Watt, said that global currency restart funds would be available in early June, but he was wrong. Charlie Watt was now told that there would be silence on the QFS for 2 weeks until mid-June. He thus rectified. He said last week that the restart would be sometime in early June, which has evidently not been met, because if there is any rule in this game, is that they fail every day they try to forecast. According to sources, all banks must be Basel compliant but Monday 6th June in order to participate in gold-backed assets. In addition, all currencies of the 209 nations participating in the gold and asset-backed restart have been determined to be ISO 200022 compliant and connected to the new financial system. Information silence. Another rule is the information silence that causes too much bewilderment and confusion among the followers of this process, but its aim is to confuse the orcs lurking to raid funds. According to Mark Sira, Reno's sources said nothing and absolutely no information was published. All intelligence sources have become strangely silent even though everything they say is unreliable. Nothing more is expected to be heard about the financial restart until mid-June, when things were predicted to get very hot. It was predicted by September 2022 global food shortages would be very evident and would last until the end of 2023. Strange China. In this process, the gold-backed Chinese yuan is supposed to have replaced the fiat petrodollar as the world's reserve currency, but China provokes every mistrust due to its totalitarian political system and its constant threat to invade Taiwan. 4th June marked the 33rd anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre in Beijing, where tens of thousands of protesters peacefully united to call for democracy, accountability, freedom, and the rule of law. The 50-day protest ended abruptly on 4th June 1989 with a brutal assault by the Chinese Communist Army. Countless were imprisoned, and the death toll is still unknown today. Fox News, ever the optimists, said there would be blackouts in the next 10 days, but this blackout thing is like the destroyer comet that never falls, even though I have been hearing it since childhood. It's the opposite with the White House lights that used to be off at night, but are now lit up in gold, as if to announce something big. Dogfighting. Less optimistic is the prediction of a global food shortages that would be very evident by September 2022 and last until the end of 2023. But if one thing is clear to me, it is that although the galactics allow crises to develop, much to our regret for so much tolerance, they nevertheless do not allow things to go too far, nor allow unbridled extremes to be generated that could produce too much suffering and imbalance. On that assumption, I base my hope that they will not allow the Third World War, let alone the use of nuclear weapons, because a divine decree banning them was issued years ago, and that is why we have not seen any more nuclear tests since they are all deactivated and disabled, even though the power boasts of muscle and show of the canines like fighting dogs. Too many swans. Regarding the much talked about Black Swan event, so much has been said that instead of a single swan, we are getting used to seeing flocks of swans flying overhead under black clouds on a daily basis. to the extent that they no longer scan even old ladies. But it has been repeatedly said that if this credit bubble ever burst, it would be the most catastrophic market failure in history. Well, I believe that everything is happening and will happen here, but it will be with mufflers and dampers to prevent blood from flowing into the river, or in other words, it will be a crisis gently controlled by those at the top to avoid shrillness and ordinariness that would be impolite to the white knights. Silence. Nobody, absolutely nobody, knows the exact time and date when the global financial restart will begin with the ended codes. This deadline would be decided by the famous quantum brain for the safety of the people. Trust the plan. On Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, at 11 a.m., a 34-state constitutional convention was held in Washington, D.C., where the Republic was declared and restored to the principles outlined in the original Constitution. 10 Democratic governors decided that their state wouldn't participate in the restored Republic, while Hawaii would proudly return to its original sovereign status as a nation-state, the Kingdom of Hawaii. The intention of the remaining 5 states is unknown. World government. When people speak of the global elite, they usually refer to a small group of wealthy and powerful individuals who operate across national borders. Through various organizations, these unelected individuals meet in secret to decide the policies they want to be implemented globally. The World Economic Forum is right in the middle of it all. In fact, through its annual meeting in Davos, it attempts to legitimize and normalize its influence on the democratic nations of the world by having a panel or expert commission of world leaders attend and speak at the event. According to the media, the Davos meetings bring people together to discuss nice-sounding topics such as, in quotes, inequality, climate change, and international cooperation. This simplistic description seems tailor-made to make the average citizen yawn with boredom, but the forum's themes go far beyond inequality. Over the years, people at the forum have said some very disturbing things, none of which attracted adequate media attention. In fact, when you put together the issues advocated by the forum, an overarching theme emerges: the total control of humankind using media, science and technology while destroying democracy and form a world government. Despite setback, UN still pushing for more power. Despite the setback at the 75th annual United Nations meeting in Geneva at the end of May, the push to give the UN agency more power continues. Following some minor changes in the international regulations approved at the recent meeting, the organization and its member governments are working on new wide-ranging amendments to the global rules. This will be presented in September. Reset news. The White Hats are in control and the media is panicking. Real raw news suggests a White Hat faction prefers Governor DeSantis over Trump. The Storm Rider claims that the Committee of the 300 has already joined the alliance due to the failure of their globalist plan. Internal discord, white hats quarrel over slow pace of process. The leisurely speed at which the arrests have been carried out has begun to sow discord among commanders. Real Raw News said they have complained about the slow pace and asked General Berger to formulate a new plan of action, but Berger has quashed the rebellion that he wanted to start the arrests before the November elections. There was a meeting last week. A couple of key allies of General Berger made no secret of their frustration at the slow pace. The most eloquent was General Angle. In quotes, "While we sit on our hands, thousands of citizens are being pushed into poverty. No, we are not the cause, but we have a responsibility to stop it. We promised, and that are we doing? We are moving like sloths, and it is hindering the cause instead of helping it," Angle told Berger. Excuse me. His impassionate soliloquy drew praise from Admiral Olson. Colonel Kersey said he had 2,500 troops ready. The meeting ended peacefully but without a solution, and the commanders agreed to meet again after Memorial Day weekend. In all, 12 generals, admirals and colonels are involved in the decisions. Half are in favor of the arrests, or with or without political support. In quotes, "This is not a democracy," said General Berger. "The armed forces do not work in a democracy," continued. "We work in a unified change of command. Some of you have forgotten that principle. I make the final decisions." He went on to say that 60 years of damage could not be undone overnight, not in a week, month, or year. The dark side had become so entangled in the political arena that it was an insoluble dilemma to determine where corruption begins and ends. He added and endorsed methodical and systematic engagement rather than hasty action. "It's just a matter of time," General Berger said. Florida Governor DeSantis was receptive to the idea, but implied he didn't want to create animosity between himself and Donald Trump, who said this support depends on the results of midterm elections. Economy. The stock market is charting a new course. It won't be pretty. Second, why big inflation is coming, say experts betting on short-lived price hikes. Treasury official admits she was wrong about inflation and that it is not transitory. Inflation causes citizens to resort to loans and credit cards. The hot housing market is making home buyers cry. Mortgage rates fall for the third week in a row as the housing market tilts in favor of home buyers. Business. Elon Musk says he will increase Tesla's total workforce despite cuts. Elon Musk asks, why hasn't Epstein customer list been leaked? Oil. Oil rises after Saudi Arabia raises crude oil prices. Saudis raise oil prices higher than expected amid Asian rally. The Biden administration considers a windfall tax on oil and gas profits. Precious metals. Gold and silver investors suffer. COMEX silver stocks at 4-year lows. The precious metals investor has been mentally tortured by market manipulators who hope to make everyone believe the resistance to the system is futile. But they are running out of time. Hanging their fox. Anna Bond writes public notice on the New World Legal Order. All gold and silver assets associated with a country operating in international jurisdiction belong to the Federation of States operating as the United States of America since 1776. Cryptocurrency. Bitcoin miners are selling tokens as prices remain near lows. Major cryptocurrency companies are looking for acquisitions. Crypto. 46,000 people lost $1 billion to scams in 15 months. Falling cryptocurrency prices undermine paycheck trend. Supply crisis. IMF calls on governments to subsidize food and energy. UN forced to cut Tindouf and Sahel refugee rations by 50%. Putin says he will not attack Ukrainian ports to allow grain to leave. Workers want raises. Transporters want robots. The supply chain depends on reaching an agreement. USA. Flooding in Miami due to the passage of a potential tropical storm. White House considers lifting tariffs on some Chinese goods. Federal gun control to be overturned by Republican states. Justice clears 2 former Trump advisors of contempt charges. Justin Trudeau plans facial recognition to track Canadians' every move. Europe. Markets will focus on the ECB interest rate meeting. Italy warns that the global bread war has already begun in Africa. Germany and the Netherlands seek alternatives to Russian gas in the North Sea. Floods and up to half a meter of hail block roads in southwest Germany. A storm front causes 1 death and 15 injuries in France. Macron provokes diplomatic clash with Ukraine by asking not to humiliate Russia. Erdogan writes that the system built by the West to defend its security and welfare is being destroyed. In quotes. Fire forces evacuation of areas on the outskirts of Athens. Europe turns to energy saving to reduce its dependence. Spain. El Rocío will exceed 1 million attendees, 5% more than in 2019. And the national drug trafficking network linked to the Sinaloa cartel is dismantled in Spain. Spain admits spraying deadly pesticides as part of the secret United Nations program. The Minister of Industry travels to Arabia with 44 companies in search of business. The Finance Minister insists on tougher sanctions against Russia. Spain wants to deliver heavy weapons such as anti-aircraft missiles and tanks to Ukraine. A criminal organization that uses minors under guardianship for drug trafficking is dismantled in Melilla. Spain and Morocco meet in Madrid to complete the reopening of the borders of Ceuta and Melilla. Operation Crossing the Strait is back. The ports are preparing for a flood of Moroccans. Pneumologists call for a ban on smoking in open public spaces. Americas. U.S. economy set to cool in 2022 after a sluggish first quarter. Puerto Rico debates its autonomous future. Mexico's opposition parties contest a crucial election in 6 states. Mexico's Laguna de Siete Colores, 7 colors, loses its distinctive blue hue. The opposition in Argentina calls for an investigation into the tender for the new gas pipeline. Alberto Fernández will be the voice of Venezuela and at the Summit of the Americas. Venezuelan cyclists demand to be taken into account by the authorities. Ecuador assigns 4,000 police and military to reinforce the border with Colombia. Fujimori asks Peru's Congress to take drastic measures against Castillo. The dismantling of the rule of law in El Salvador is of concern to Amnesty International. Art and sports figures called for the release of political prisoners in Nicaragua. Heavy rains in Cuba leave at least 3 dead and 1 missing. Heavy rains in Cuba leave houses flooded, evacuees evacuated, and crops flooded. 7 dead in Colombian mine, 8 still missing. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.